musical melodies? Do you like making the melodies? If so, the Gibson Melody Maker might be for you, especially if you're on a budget. But not so much anymore. These vintage solid body electrics were the last bastion of affordability for Gibson guitars. They were inexpensive on the vintage market for a very, very long time. Those days are gone. The Les Paul Juniors moved up the ladder in terms of desirability. These were left behind, but now they're catching up. They really were an attempt to serve the beginner's market for electric guitars. Of course, the Les Paul Junior was the first idea. That was simple. These were even simpler. Even the headstock is funny. It's not like the other Gibsons. It's got straight sides. It's narrow. They left the side wings off so that they could use a narrower piece of stock for the neck and save themselves 35 cents or something. The bodies were thinner than the Junior as well. It's still a solid piece of mahogany, but it's only 1.25 inches thick, which is kind of your lower limit in terms of how thin you can build a guitar and use standard electrical equipment, particularly switches. Originally they were issued with one Fender-style single-coil pickup in the bridge position. You could pay more and get a dual pickup model. In this case, those have been switched out for mini humbuckers. All the electronics mount to the pickguard, which is another cost-cutting measure. There's only one routing channel on the top surface of the body. They didn't have to do both sides. This all cuts down on the manufacturing time and the material cost and the labor. They listed for less than $100 when they were brought out in 1959. At that point they looked very much like a single cutaway Les Paul Jr. In 1961 it became a double cutaway. In 66 they took on the SG pointy horn shape. And the model continued into the early 70s, was discontinued, was brought back in the late 70s, discontinued, brought back in the mid-80s, different shapes, and on and on. A lot of different things have been branded a Melody Maker over the years. The Melody Maker, that's a bad name, right? Can we agree on that? Fender won that battle. They got there first with the Music Master. That's a good name. I tend to mix them up. All this age and such, it looks like this is from 1962, but it is not. This is a reissue from 2010, I believe, which some third party has taken and done the serious relicking work on. I don't think this is a custom shop job. This is someone else. Like, the back on this is also very rusticated. So, yeah, it's weathered and aged. The owner would like to swap out the pickups. They'd also like a better job done to make a pickguard that better reflects, the shape of those pickups. This has got gaping holes. They do not get along with this switch. We're going to apply a more standard Gibson-esque three-way toggle switch. And, the other thing is the tuners on this are pretty darn sticky. So we'll have a look at those. First off, action. It looks like solid rock and roll 50s action. Just about 4/64ths and about 3.5 64ths. Nothing wrong with that. These are an aged Kluson Deluxe tuner. Look at that, they've got staining on them, and someone has cast mummy finger style knobs that look like they are deteriorating, which is bizarre. That's kind of funny. I like that. They seem to be fully functional and not in danger of falling apart, but they kind of look like they're on the way. So these are, they're okay. I think they need a cleaning. Well, I spy a Music City bridge. This, I believe, would be the Savvy model. It's designed for a 1960s post placement, which isn't quite as extreme as the ones they were using in the 50s. It's correct. Very nice. These are the locking studs. If I really wanted to age this appropriately, I'd use a smaller than required screwdriver and mangle the tops of them. I can't bring myself to do that. Okay, but this is taking it too far. Those are Robertson screws. They're a square drive, and They are tapered or countersunk screws. Yeah, we can do better. Yeah, the screws on this guard are interesting too. They seem to be a mix. There's flat heads, round heads. Like, that's a flat head that's been put into a countersunk hole. I don't agree with that. Oh, come on. For Pete's sake. This is a flathead screw that was cut down. Now here's another interesting choice that was made. This is set up like a converted single pickup guitar with one volume, one tone. Two pickup guitars had the typical Gibson arrangement with, you know, two volumes, two tones. The other thing is, these were front-loaded in terms of the jacks, but this has been switched over into something akin to a Les Paul Jr., where the jack's on the side rather than going in the front. That's, you know, I don't mind that choice. That's fine. I just find it interesting, that's all. Okay, we'll see what we're working with here. What the heck? Okay, so we got a 2012 Lawler, 2018 Lawler. That's a 2018 pot. CTS. Everything's covered in this reddish brown dust. What's that wire do? And it's like, yeah, no, it's like it's been dragged through the outback or something. I don't understand this at all. Still got the original cap from a single coil, 47k ohms. So that probably did not sound great with those Lawlers. I think we're just going to start fresh. Having a difficult time getting this jack out. They must have put some kind of strain reliever in there. That is locked into the hole to an extent where it's not going to move. Okay, life's too short. I wanted to hand it back to the customer all as one single assembly. Clearly, it ain't gonna happen. Ugh. Really, dude? Come on. Okay. We can enlarge that hole. Ever notice how the solo in Right Said Fred's I'm Too Sexy is a direct rip-off of Hendrix's Third Stone from the Sun? The owner has another pickguard here, which is also kind of mangled, and could be used as a template, he thinks. And I'm just going to see how close we come. I'm not wild about certain things on the outline. I'm going to have to refine it. It looks homemade rather than handmade. And yeah, I'm going to have to route some, I think. It's okay in a general way. I'm going to also change this area up here. But it'll do. Working on stuff like this, it's the little subtleties, you know, like this intersection between the guard and the end of the neck. That has to be a smaller radius. I'm actually going to disregard the cutouts and plot new ones when it's on the guitar, because I think we can work to tighter tolerances. And yeah, we get to showcase some Canadian talent. We've got some hand-wound mini buckers from Vinum Pickups in Botwood, Newfoundland. It's not really Newfoundland, and it's certainly not Newfoundland. Newfoundland. It's a picturesque place, and Craig is a friend of the channel who watches videos. Everybody wave at Craig. He makes a bunch of different models of pickup designs. The owner would like a tortoise guard, he was thinking, rather than black. And we'll also get away from this black, white, black effect from the multiply. I've been waiting to use this plastic for a while. I got from Solo Guitars, which, you know, it's a subtle but distinctive pattern. It's a swirl. It's also thick. It's 2.5 millimeters, or 100,000ths thick, which is thicker than usual. Kind of a sturdy, dimensional thing that I think will look really good. I'm going to make an actual routing template for this rather than just trace it out and try to sand the plastic to shape, which is something I'd otherwise do for a guard like this that I probably won't ever have to make again. The reason is this is a complex shape with straight portions in it, and it's convoluted enough in a way that if something goes wrong, I don't want to have to start over again from scratch. I'd rather make a mistake on the template, if you know what I mean. And this is the kind of job that might be better done on a CNC router. I don't own one of those. I don't have the space for one. And to be honest, drawing a routing diagram for something like this can take a long time. In the end, it probably comes out about even in terms of cost. Okay, I took the tuners off and really? No. If I take the tuners off a 1960s Gibson, they don't look like this. Like the bearing surfaces, I mean, there's rust, but it's almost like there's something else, like maybe Fuller's Earth or some kind of artificial aging powder. You don't want the contact surfaces of your parts to look like that. There's no reason for it. This guitar is not that old, and guitars that are old don't generally look like that either. I'm going to soak these down in some evapor rust. Stupid thing is the mechanisms inside feel fine. They've been well lubricated, and they're moving smoothly. No problem. It's just this stuff. Artificial aging. Now that the parts are clean, I'm going to protect the surfaces with some BoShield T9, which is both a lubricant and an anti-corrosion compound used in the aerospace industry. There's no ground wire to the bridge. It seems to have broken off flush with the sidewall here, which is kind of an important thing, so I guess I'm going to be pulling that. For those without a fancy bearing and bushing puller, the time-tested method is to put a piece of wooden dowel in the hole, and then by screwing in the stud, the bushing gets pulled right up. I leave a goodly length of exposed wire, which will get pressed into place when the bushing is reinstalled. Freehand sanding a straight line like this is quite difficult. It almost always has to be cut with a router and a straight edge. If you don't have a specific template for a rectangular pickup, this is an efficient way of gluing one up. I rough cut my plastic and I'm sticking the parts together with tape and super glue. Doesn't matter how close you position the vacuum, half the shavings end up elsewhere. Drilled some screw holes. I have to countersink those. I'll chamfer the top surfaces and then sand everything down with progressively finer sandpaper. Judging from previously plugged holes, this will be at least the third pickguard this guitar has worn. I want the pickups to be accurately centered on the center line of the neck, so I will run a straight edge along both sides, transfer a line to the pickguard surface here. Then I can derive a center line from those and plot out the position of the pickups. I'd like the pickup placement to be centered within the tongue of the guard here, so I have to do some routing. Tape and super glue the straight edge in place. All that so I can have some really nice fitting pickups. Just checking out possible control locations. The right angle switch here takes up quite a lot of real estate, and that can complicate matters a bit. I think this will work. I don't like having the volume control too far forward or too close to the bridge because, you know, you end up knocking it with your hand. I'd like to keep it in line or maybe even slightly behind the bridge. It is, as I feared, at least the tone pot won't fit into the current routing scheme, and I bet you the switch is a bit, yeah. So I have to take some meat off in here. I'll try and keep this neat and tidy. Sometimes a honkin' big Forstner bit is less stressful and less messy and faster. Especially when paired with a sharp chisel. And try and keep all of this stuff neat. I always like to leave at least an inch worth of extra wire here in the event that something happened and I had to like re-splice if one of these came off. I don't see how they could. These are pretty well fastened, but in the past other people have left too little there for me to work with when that happens, so be nice to the next person. Polishing, polishing, polishing. This is one of the more satisfying moments in any job, replacing the knobs. It means you're getting near the end. Well, this is frustrating. I got to take it all apart again because I ran out of spring length. Just about the right distance for the neck pickup, but I need another 1/8 of an inch for the bridge. I've got to take this apart and clip the springs shorter so that at this point they're crumpled up as far as they'll go, and I can't compress them any further. Bummer. Well, there we have it. I'll leave it up to the customer to scuff up the pickguard to his liking, if he so desires. I think it's fine the way it is. It'll age gracefully on its own. Yeah, these are interesting little guitars. The neck joints on them are, you know, much better than you'll find in a 1960s SG. Much more supported. And if you get a good set of pickups in them, they're a rock and roll machine.